welcome back to my channel. My name is Peyton. Thank you for being here. Today I'm going to talk about my favorite books of 2023. I'm so excited for this. I've had an incredible reading year. Probably the best I've had since high school. I read 70 books, which is insane. Because usually my average is around like 35, 40 the last few years. So I'm really proud of myself. I devoted a lot of time to reading, made extra space in my life and my day, and it really helped my mental health. But today I'm going to talk about the very tops, my favorite. There's a mix of lit-fic and horror and thriller and fantasy. But first I want to talk about my honorable mentions because it was really hard to narrow down. So I have 4 honorable mentions. They're thriller and horror. I wanted to plug the app Libby. I am not sponsored by them. I just absolutely adore the app Libby. All you need is a library card to get started with it, and you have access to thousands upon thousands of ebooks and audiobooks, and it's all through your library, which is amazing. So I utilized that a lot this year. I got a Kindle. That's probably another big reason I read a lot this year. The first honorable mention I wanted to talk about was Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. This was so fun and so unsettling and creepy to read. This is described as Titanic meets The Shining, which is such an apt descriptor of what this book is. I read it, I think, over the summer. I love sci-fi horror so much. My favorite horror movie is The Thing and Alien. I like the isolation. I like the inherent danger of being in space, because if something goes wrong, you are absolutely fucked. And I like the aspect of aliens, or even with The Thing, which had aliens, but also it had trust with others on the team. So that also plays a big role in Dead Silence. Dead Silence is about a crew of a ship that is about to be obsolete, and so is its commander, Claire. She's on her last run. She has kind of been, for lack of a better term, she's not really been wanted by her employer for reasons that are left said at the beginning of the novel, but she feels so at home leading the ship and being in space, and she's about to be put at a desk job on Earth, which is her worst nightmare. Hi, Mac. Crew receives an emergency distress signal from a lost cruise liner luxury ship called the Aurora, which has been missing for over 20 years, and no one has been able to find it. There was a massive search effort. It was a giant news story. It had some of the most wealthiest people in the world on it, and it just disappeared. This is a massive discovery, and it could also lead to a massive payday, which is awesome for Claire, so she can fund her way back into space, back onto a ship, back onto leading a crew. What they find is anything but exciting. It was so atmospheric. It was so horrifying. I listened to the audiobook and man, it was great. It was really great. The narrator was really good, and the atmosphere and like the noises and the silence and the reveal towards the end, it was just so good. I am so excited. S.A. Barnes has another novel coming out in April. I'm 1000% gonna pick it up. It's another sci-fi horror. This was great. I think you should read it. Next horror book I have is The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell. This is an historical fiction gothic horror, which is so my jam. It's set in the I'm probably wrong. It's set in the 1800s. Elsie is newly married to the man of her dreams. She thinks she's gonna live a life of luxury and happiness. She's come from not the best upbringing and circumstances, so this is her dream, to have ladies in waiting and a big house to manage, and she is pregnant. Her new husband mysteriously dies at the beginning of the book, and she is left to go to the home that he has just purchased and run that house. In her pregnant grief. The house is called The Bridge, and the staff is really superstitious, really not loving being there. Then all this weird stuff starts to happen once Elsie moves in. Scratching noises, rooms that come and go, that are there one day and the next day they're not there. Secret passageway, and little wooden figures that are look like people, that are very lifelike, that are so creepy. It's such a good Victorian ghost story. I didn't expect it to end the way it did, and I was shocked. It was so good. I loved it. I loved everything about it. It's such a good haunted house, chilling, creepy vibe. I like the characters a lot. I love the main character, Elsie. And it's told from dual timelines too, so you have to unravel like what happened to Elsie, what happened at this house. And yeah, great. Next was actually the first book I read this year. It was my first Ania Ahlborn. It is Brother. This was insane. So one of the first books I got from Libby. So this is what you can have on this app. It's great. A very dark horror thriller. It's about this family in Appalachia, I think in West Virginia, called the Morrows. Husband and wife, 2 sons, and a daughter. There's something not right about this family. There's just something not right that keeps the police away and keeps the locals like really about them. The youngest son, Michael, who's 19, doesn't feel like he fits in with the rest of the family. He is really emotional and feels a lot of what the family does as part of their way of life as wrong. And he knows that it's wrong. He just doesn't feel right. He wants to get away so badly. His brother, Rebel, knows this about him, and it just makes his life hell on top of what his daily hell is and what the family does. And then he meets Alice, who's a really pretty girl working in a local record store, and thinks this might be a way for him to get out because he starts to develop feelings for her. The twist! Last part of the book, holy crap. I think I may have figured out part of the twist, but not the whole twist. And I was like, whoa! I'm going to read more of her work. So disturbing. And just exactly what I like in horror. Just super dark, super twisted. Great characters. Yeah. Next is this thriller I picked up at the recommendation of a friend. Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. Also my first Jennifer Hillier. This is a little bit of a complicated thriller. I stayed up super late and then finished it the next morning. I could not put it down. Jar of Hearts follows Georgina Shaw, also known as Geo. When she was in high school, her best friend was brutally murdered. So Geo went to prison along with her boyfriend at the time, Calvin, for her involvement in said murder. She carried the secret of exactly what happened to her best friend Angela, didn't tell anyone, and was in prison for 14 years. But she's released and people think that they know exactly what happened and people are not really willing but trying to move on. Bodies start turning up killed in the exact same way as Angie. The mystery aspect to try and figure out, is this a copycat? Why is this happening again? And pretty much clear her name and remember more about that night. There's so many twists and turns. The writing is fantastic. I could not put this down. So good. Alright, now we're going to get into the top 10. I'm so excited. These are not going to be in order except for my favorite book at the end of this. There's quite a few here. I'll try and keep it snappy, keep it snippy and brief. First is Big Swiss by Jen Beagin. This was so funny. I laughed out loud so many times reading this. I think this would be an excellent movie, and I heard it is being adapted. Oh my gosh. I think she is such a fantastic, dark, humorous writer. This is about a woman named Greta who is a transcribist for a sex therapist, and she becomes obsessed with one of the therapist's clients, who she nicknames Big Swiss because she's Swedish. And it's a very small town, so she does connect who a lot of the tapes and voices are around her. It makes for really funny banter and gossip. Her obsession becomes stronger and stronger. She decides to run in to Big Swiss, and they developed a friendship and more. And this was just so good. It's so funny. The characters are just so amazing and irresistible, and it has a lot of commentary on mental health and therapy and stigmas with that, infidelity. I think Jen Beagin is just amazingly talented, and I don't read a lot of comedic stuff. It's more on like the darker realm, like dark comedy, which this is, but it also is genuinely funny. So highly recommend this one if you want a very big laugh I laughed out loud, and I can't wait to see what she does next. Next should be a surprise to no one because I talked about it in my birthday vlog. Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I cannot scream, yell, and shout how much I loved this book, how much I love this series. Because I did read Hellbent shortly after. I just liked Ninth House slightly better. It follows our protagonist, Alex Stern, who is from California. She's kind of been on the wrong side of the tracks, like dealing with drugs, bad people, what have you. She was a singular survivor of a multiple homicide, and she is selected to come study at Yale because of her unique ability, and I'll leave it at that. She gets put in charge of Lethe House, or Ninth House, a house that presides over all the 8 secret societies at Yale, like Skull and Bones and Illuminati-esque stuff, the under secret societies that control the world, what have you. A murder happens, and Alex, even though everyone tells her not to worry about it, has nothing to do with Lethe House or Ninth House, that doesn't deter Alex one bit. The mystery and the magic and everything, like, this is dark. This is so much darker than I thought it would be. And so well written. I was engaged the entire time. The fantasy element of this, it hit all the right notes for me. And I loved all the characters in this. I loved Alex and Darlington and Dawes and Turner. They are more prevalent in the second book, but they're introduced in this, and it's just so good. I want to read more Leigh Bardugo. She has a new release coming out in April. So good! Love this. Next, I have a horror book which completely took me by surprise. I've seen it in multiple places recommended as a genuinely scary horror book. So I was like, why not? I'll try it. How scary can it be? Naomi's Room by Jonathan Ahlborn. This is scary. Like, it is truly a slow burn haunted house ghost story. Up until like the last quarter of the book, the ending, I stared at the wall for about 10 minutes and was like, holy shit, what the hell did I just read? This was my face. This was great. This follows a couple, Laura and Charles, who live in a very nice, beautiful home, privileged, and one night when they were Christmas Eve shopping, Charles gets separated from Naomi. She goes missing. Days later, Naomi's discovered murdered. But is she really dead? Excellent ghost story. Couldn't recommend it enough. It's not that long. It packs a wallop of a punch. There's so many parts that are so expertly written that are so terrifying, so unexpected. I think it's really hard to write a scary, good ghost story. This is just my personal opinion. This does it so well. I almost said this would be an excellent movie, but I don't think they could get away with what is in this book. It would be a rough movie, for sure. This lived up to the hype for me as a very scary horror book. Definitely pick it up if you can stomach the content. It is, yes. Next should also not be a surprise to anyone. It was such a surprise to me to pick up a cozy fantasy. First experience into cozy fantasy. And I just want to read more, especially from this author, The Monk and Robot Duology by Becky Chambers. Oh my god, these are just so delightful, so sweet. I will be thinking about these for a long time. These are definite rereads for me. They're super short. You can read them in a couple hours, if that. This follows the character Dex, who is a tea monk, and Robot Moscap, who are introduced in the first book, A Song for the Wild Built, and their story continues in A Prayer for the Crown Shy. They are going around their land of Penga to ask the universal question of what do humans need. It has such an optimistic view of what the future could be. So much good is in these pages, so much thoughtful questions, ways of looking at life and people and helping people, focusing on kindness instead of cruelty and focusing on community instead of capitalism, just helping each other make a better world for ourselves. This was a recent read I read over Christmas. It's not a Christmas read. It's a horror book. It was a 5-star read for me. This blew my socks off. Earthlings by Sayaka, Murata. Holy shit. Like, talk about a book that'll leave you staring at the wall for a bit. Like, I I don't even know how much I can really say, or I don't know how much I want to talk about this, because I feel like going in with just the blurb on the back is all you need. Like the first part and the second part are so disturbing, but for completely different reasons. This follows Natsuki, who is a young girl at the beginning of this novel who's dealing with a lot of horrible things, trauma, abuse, what have you. This is very heavy on the content warnings. All of them are in this book. All of them are thrown into this book. I mean, I can handle some heavy shit, but this was, woof! The premise, if I try to describe it to you, I'm going to sound insane. Natsuki is convinced that she has been dropped onto Earth from an alien planet, and that she has a little plush hedgehog who is an emissary from said planet that is guiding her life and her relationships and just helping her escape what happens to her. Novel is set in 2 different timelines. Natsuki when she is a young girl, middle school, grade school, and then older when she is in her 30s. I don't know if I want to say anything else. I think to go into this with the less information, the better. You will have, I think, a much, I don't want to say better. I don't know. I feel like I enjoyed only knowing the blurb. That's all I needed. And the rest is like, oh, look at this. I tabbed the shit out of this. New favorite book. I don't know what that says about me. I think I have a hard time recommending this to people unless they have a full awareness of the content that is in this, because it is heavy. Yeah. Unexpected new favorite. This also blew me away completely. Mary, An Awakening of Terror by Nat Cassidy. Oof! This, so unexpected. I'm going to be thinking about Mary for like such a long time, because she was such an amazing character. This follows Mary, who's middle-aged, and at the beginning of the novel, you think she is dealing with the effects of menopause. She's having hot flashes, she's having a really hard time sleeping, and very vivid, excruciating, terrifying dreams. Every time she looks in a mirror, she sees horrible stuff. Her aunt reaches out to her, who's in Arizona, to come help out. She's not doing well, so Mary drops everything to move out there. And then things get real weird. There's also a lot of trauma that Mary is dealing with in a new town. The residents are a little quirky. Her aunt is real awful. Mary's symptoms actually start to amplify once she moves back to her hometown. The history behind the town and the place where Mary takes a job and the people are so expertly written. Really vividly written descriptions. Like, this was playing a picture in my head. This was a movie in my head. I saw everything so well. It's such a... The last part is absolutely bananas. You just gotta sit back and enjoy the ride. Because it's just wild. I love this. I love this. I know Nat Cassidy has another book out, which I got as a part of my Christmas gifts to myself. So that'll be probably one of the first things I read in 2024. Love this. Highly recommend if you're looking for a new horror, a new voice in horror. I think Nat Cassidy just, this hits. This hits good. This hits so hard. We're getting into my top 3. Alright, but first we are going to start with Tomorrow, Tomorrow, Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I think this is on multiple people's best books they've ever read. It's newly included on mine. Brilliant and gorgeous, and I felt so much for the characters of Sam and Sadie. I will be thinking about them for so long. All the books on this list I will reread, but I know I will revisit this again. This follows Sam and Sadie, who meet when they're children at a children's hospital and become close friends, bonding over their love of Nintendo 64 and video games. Then there's this big swath of time that they are not together and meet again when they both go to Harvard for different reasons. They join forces and together create a massively successful video game. And this follows their successes, their downfalls, their personal lives. I think this has a really great commentary on friendship. They are described as often in love but never lovers, and I love that. So refreshing to have a book that just focuses on strong love of the friends in your life, you aren't related to, aren't in love with, don't have a family with, but are your found family. And I love that. And I teared up. I'm not gonna lie, I teared up. I might cried out. Yeah, I'm just thinking about this book. It's just so beautiful, and yes! also my first Gabrielle Zevin. Sorry guys. Just thinking about like some parts of this book that really made me tear up. It has such a good commentary on chronic pain. I see a lot of representation in that. At least nothing I've picked up. If you have recommendations for that, I would really like to hear them below. But yes, just so lovely. Just such a lovely book. Such a powerful, lovely book. Also like super nostalgic for me because I also, not the fictional games in this, but I still play a lot of video games. So this was super nostalgic for me and what they were talking about and their love of making something and making art and telling stories. Bonding with someone over that and its frustrations too is making something that the two people can be happy with and are proud of. Yeah. I think I mentioned in a previous video that I'm new to adult fantasy, and I kept hearing this author's name as like a good starting point, and I kept hearing it again and again, and the premise just really interested me. I think the length of the series interested me, and also that it's a finished series interested me, and that is Robin Hobb's series, The Realm of the Elderlings, specifically book 1 in the Farseer trilogy, Assassin's Apprentice. This is exactly what I was looking for in a fantasy novel. I adored the characters. Fitz. The writing is so beautiful. I don't know what I expected for a fantasy novel. I think I expected to be confused a lot. And you are thrown into this world and thrown into these characters, but you love the ride. You love being on the ride. Book 1 introduces our character Fitz. He is a royal bastard of Prince Chivalry. He's prince over the land or world in this book known as the Six Duchies? Six Duchies. You follow him from a very young boy, and then this book ends when he's about 15. I know the later trilogies in the series, he's an old man. So you are truly with Fitz throughout everything. I know he comes and goes out of the series of The Realm of the Elderlings, but he is a main character. Fitz is a royal bastard. They're not really sure what to do with him. They want to keep an eye on him, but they also don't want to give him any status in the courts because that could also backfire. So when Fitz is younger, they decide to bring him up in the courts and teach him combat and scribe and manners. They also want to keep him around for another reason, to be trained in the art of assassination. Fitz also has this magic ability called the Wit, where he can telepathically communicate with animals. I've heard that Robin Hobb can absolutely break you, and like she has no qualms getting rid of characters that you love, and that was evident in the first book. Oh man, I'm ready for some heartbreak. I'm ready for some beautiful writing and world building and characters, and yeah, I'm so excited to continue this series in 2024. My favorite book, which if you've been on my channel for a hot minute, because I only started this in October, November? I only started my channel a few months ago, but this was one of the books I vlogged about. It shocked me that how much I love this book and how much I couldn't put it down and how much I keep thinking about this book. It's also one I have a hard time recommending because of the content. That's My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. I can't, there's only so much I can say about this that hasn't already been said in previous vlogs. This is such a powerful book. This is such an important book. This is such an amazingly well-written book. I'm really glad that I finally got around to reading it. It's on my shelf forever. I think Lexi over at Newly Nova, this was also one of her favorite books that sparked this moving up on my TBR. And yeah, it's my favorite book of the year. In early 2000, we're following 15-year-old Vanessa as she starts at a very, very upscale private school and develops a relationship with her much older English professor. The chapters shift between timelines, and the next chapter is in 2017 when Vanessa's in her early 30s and the rise of the Me Too movement is all over the news. Other students come out with allegations against the same professor that Vanessa was involved with when she was at the school. So much packed into this book. It's not super long, but there's so much packed into this, and it's so expertly written. This book could be so easily expletive, but it's not. And I really loved that you're truly with Vanessa through some really horrible traumatic events, and also with her older, as she's trying to come to terms and make sense of those traumatic events and the relationship she was in. This is dark. This is heavy. Heavy, heavy, heavy. I know the author met with a lot of abuse victims and survivors when writing this book, and I think it shows really well. The author was also highly influenced by Lolita. That comes up a ton in this book. And I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was so beautiful and so upsetting, but so important and powerful. The amount that I underlined this book is insane because it's just so... I wish I could speak more eloquently about this book. Pick up at your own risk. I would highly recommend looking at content warnings for this. It is incredibly heavy. Thank you so much for watching, for clicking, for being a part of my new little baby channel. It would mean a lot to me if you gave this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more content from me. I have a lot of great plans coming in 2024, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!